AI is an existential threat for many industries, and one of those industries is screenwriting. Today's guest, Victoria Shen, is the Executive Director of the Writers Guild of Canada. She can help us understand the challenges the WGC is facing in the age of AI. Victoria, welcome to Open Source.
Thank you so much for having me.
Look, I'm excited to have you, not just because we've known each other for so long, but also you're such an excellent spokesperson for the Writers Guild of Canada. And AI, I mean, this is potentially devastating, but I'm very curious to hear your perspective. Let's start right at the beginning. Why does the WGC care about AI?
I know it sounds a bit weird because maybe when you were watching The Matrix, you didn't think that in this dystopic future where AI taking over the world, that Canadian screenwriters would be at the forefront of the front
Right?
lines. But we were, in fact, the first guild in the film and television industry in Canada to negotiate AI language into our collective agreement. And so because we were the first, and at that point, the American guilds were still on strike, so there really wasn't anything in place. And because we were the first, there was no precedent. So we really kind of had to figure things out for ourselves.
Mm.
Right. And so in that way, we've really become the thought leaders on that issue. And so right now, it's only us and the Americans. We're the only two writers' guilds in the world that actually have AI protection in our collective agreements. And actually, and I didn't realize that until last year when I was invited to speak in Galway, Ireland, at the World Conference of Writers Guilds of Screenwriters, because we're the only two in the world with this protection. So people are really curious to know, well, what are the issues, what were the challenges, and kind of where did that language land?
Right. Okay. So not everyone knows why AI is a threat to screenwriters. Obviously, I do. I'm a writer. You run the Writers Guild, so you know. So for our audience who doesn't know, how is AI a threat to screenwriters?
Okay, so I'm going to sort of break it down for you. And some of these things we were worried about before we got the language. Now they're not such a live issue. But like I said, we're the only two guilds in the world that have it, right? So one of them is like the reduction in work opportunities. So we're saying hire writers, not robots, right? That's our little slogan. We're also worried about the threat to the craft of screenwriting. So we don't want just anybody typing things into ChatGPT and now they've got a script and now they're calling themselves a screenwriter. Okay, so there's like a craft of the screenwriting that we're also trying to preserve. We're also concerned about reduction in credit and compensation. So a big part of it's like screenwriting is a bit more complicated. You're not like working on a novel, you're not the sole writer. So oftentimes people are working in a room or they can get rewritten before production. And so the kind of credit that they get is very much tied to also the compensation that they're getting. So we also want to be very careful about the credit and compensation that they're getting if people are using AI in the process. We're also worried about the unauthorized use of copyrighted content. So we believe that a lot of these AI, machine learning have already scraped and taken copyrighted materials to train their AI. We're concerned about undermining diversity. So you've seen, for example, a lot of shows now have diverse characters, and that's also meant there's more diversity in writers' rooms because they're bringing in writers with that lived experience
Mm.
to write these characters and storylines. And then now, with all the stuff that's happening in the U.S., what we're concerned about is cultural sovereignty, right? So
Mm.
we think that AI generated content, that's not Canadian content. What
Mm.
AI is doing, that's a lot of that material that they're training and scraping from are probably American. A lot of these companies are American. So if you care about Canada, Canadian culture, and a cultural identity, you want to hire writers and not AI robots.
Look, it's a fascinating conversation, and you outlined it so expertly. I mean, I've known you for so long. You're so brilliant. Look, we only have a minute left. So what is the WGC doing in the collective agreement to protect screenwriters? Like, what can you do?
Well, one of the things that we warrant when you hire one of our writers is that it is not the stuff that they're writing is not generated in whole or in part by AI, right? Because that's such a critical part of one of the warranties that we have previously to this language was that they're generating original content. That's what you're paying for. So I think that's really important as people start to use this technology more and more commonly. I think it's really important that when you hire a professional WGC Guild writer, you know that you are getting original content that's not going to give you any problems in terms of copyright infringement.
Like, it's a long conversation. It's a complex conversation. You break it down so well. We've got 3 more segments. It's Victoria Shen of the Writers Guild of Canada here on Open Source.